there's an importance in staying independent. And a lot of times where people go wrong is they want to talk to me about the different rules, clauses, and regulations that the music industry, as we sort of know it, the heavy hitters, if you will, play by. I don't really know too much about that because that's not really the business that I'm in. And what I'm really saying is they don't make me money. So, and they've proven to not be able to make a lot of people money. And I understand also where the big labels and the heavy hitters are coming from, because if they give an artist essentially a loan, which is pretty much all a record deal is, and you can't pay back that loan, or you prove to be something that you're not, I guess to a degree it's hard for them to continue to push and support. But at the same time, I have also seen that there's some weird stuff that goes on there, and I think the easiest way to sum it up is that if you push yourself, you can find a fan base and be profitable. The problem is if you push yourself and you find a fan base, you can't be profitable, or it's much harder to be if there's a middleman. So it's kind of weird to me at times, because I get it, but then at other times it's like, even though I know it, I miss the point of why are we, if you're a big label, why are we as a big label so impatient or so quick to throw out a huge loan and not give somebody a chance to build a fan base? I've come to find that it's actually pretty easy to build a fan base if you have good music, are generally friendly, and generally interesting. So I don't really understand why a label throws out money like that and then says, well, you only sold 40,000 copies and we needed you to sell, 1 million. That didn't happen, you're dropped. And it's like, well, 40,000, even if it was 4,000, if you're selling 1,000 a month, I understand some of the people, no, that's, you don't understand the numbers, that's not. If you're getting 1,000 sales a month, or 1,000 people interested in you a month, that's really nothing to take for granted, per se. That's something to kind of, really behold. So to not pay attention to that and to drop it and not give it time to grow is really their loss. So why let it be something where your value is placed on that? If you have attention, take it, harness it, capture it, nurture it, do better with it. I hope that's somewhat helpful to you guys, because there's a lot out there that could kind of make you feel down on yourself about the fact that you're not absolutely rocking it after getting a loan and striking gold. It's just not necessary. It's not necessary to feel bad that you have a small fan base. That's your money right there. That's your millions. That's your chance to make it work. So go make it work with that. You don't need a middleman. If I had an ideal, if I could start over, or if I could take my child and know that they wanted to be in music, I'll tell you what I would do. By 3, they'd be practicing piano. And we always kind of see I was just watching a video on this guy who said I was in a typical Asian kind of family where, I can't remember exactly how he worded it, but it was pretty strongly worded. It was like, my family believed, just like a lot of Asian families do, that, can't remember exactly what he said, but basically an instrument, usually piano, has to be in your hands by 3. And every day, while I could hear kids outside playing, I had to practice piano 1 hour a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, with the allowance of a few sick days. And he went off into a story about that isn't relevant here, but if you think about it, like, I'm in my mid-30s right now. If you could be 3 years old and basically bang out the theory and ability to play piano, so not just play, but the theory of it, so that if somebody said, write a happy song or write a sad song, or here's an artist, what are they doing here? Well, okay, they mostly use major chords. Their melodies are kind of syncopated in this way. So if you're able to play piano, understand the theory, write songs, or at least, top lines, melody lines, things of that nature. Maybe not be an expert songwriter, but decent. Maybe, let's say that takes you 10 years, so 3 to 13. And then, of course, as you mature into more of a teenage to young adult, I think that's where a lot of songwriting really starts to develop as well. So roughly 10 years for that. And then from 13 to 23, 10 years to study, like I just said, developing your songwriting. So because you're experiencing life, so you can actually write songs from the heart that are heartfelt about something more than what, from 3 to 13 typically hands you in life. But not only songwriting, possibly even more important, business, marketing, and finance. By the time you're 23, you've had 20 years of the product, if you will. So, songs, piano playing, and then the business aspect of it, which is business, marketing, and finance. And although while you were doing the business, marketing, and finance from 13 to 23, you were still practicing piano and you were still writing, and probably even more important, you were actually making music and putting it out. So that by 23 you've already had an album or 3. You practice every day, and it's a tight schedule. Business, marketing, finance, piano playing, and songwriting. And then, of course, there's absolutely no real reason, I feel, to pay for studio time nowadays. So you learn a DAW, a digital audio workstation. So now you have basically cut out the need for a middleman, but it's taken you about 20 years. Without that, it's like you need a middleman, and then there goes all your freedoms in the music industry. And this is why so many musicians have such a terrible experience. They want to try to save time and bypass their shortcomings, but it's at the expense of basically their soul, their freedoms. Because remember, if something doesn't work out, it's not like the whole thing gets dissolved and you can just go off and do your own thing. A lot of times you get locked into these clauses where you can't record. Not only are your old projects not being pushed, but legally, you can't go and record something new and push that. Sometimes you can, it depends, but just understand that it's not as easy as being like, okay, well, a major label gave me $1 million deal and that didn't work, so I think I'll just go over here now. It doesn't always work out like that, where it didn't work so you can just shrug your shoulders and go off and start a country band or try your hand at DJing. It doesn't always work like that. So anyways, if you can spend 20 years developing the talent side, using that talent to write and create, and then study the business, marketing, and finance of it, you can really launch a real business. And I mean, even if you don't take it to the extreme, which it's really not that extreme of starting at 3, you know, even me in my mid-30s, I'm tightening up a lot of my talent skills. You know, because you have to understand too that I think this has been the big issue of like the EDM kind of bubble that happened basically 2010 to roughly 2020, roughly. Is that, you know, I'm kind of ending it at the pandemic because, you know, it's a weird time, but basically a lot of people push towards learning to record and produce, which is great. Actually, I'm going to turn around, stay by the lake. So they focused a lot on recording, producing, buying studio gear, getting a DAW, and basically setting up a home studio. But a lot of these people kind of forgot that their time in the studio is going to be so much longer because number one, they can't play piano, and number two, even if they can play piano, they don't know theory that well, so they don't know how to manipulate a song to their advantage and speak in the language that they need to make it easy and great. So major issue there. It's like you might be great with Ableton or great with FL, but if you're depending on minimal knowledge, and then MIDI packs came along, MIDI packs, but if you still don't know what you're doing, you're still a slave to what the MIDI packs do for you. They don't, you know, if you don't know how to manipulate a MIDI pack, you're still very limited. And then if you're not and then, you know, technology came along and created AI patterns. Well, even if you're depending on AI patterns, you're still at the mercy of the randomly generated pattern that AI produces. Hey guys, how are you? So it's very important to understand that, like, you learn your DAW, you learn piano, and you learn writing. That way, when you hit record, play it, and then basically go back and replace samples and sounds with something more appropriate for the genre and the style and year that you're in, the trend. I think a lot about Jana with that, as I've watched her career grow, and you know, you can see that, like, you know, clearly she's very blessed. I mean, she has an awesome apartment. First of all, it looks like it's in downtown LA, or, you know, it's some kind of super new looking kitschy apartment, but, you know, there's no shortage of gear. You know, some of us can't even afford the most basic Pioneer controller. I think she's got like currently like 4 top of the line CDJs and a top of the line mixer. Clearly she has no problem with producing songs at a high level, but what I really see there is that she can play piano very well, and she clearly understands theory. So the thing about that is when you can play piano and bust out chord progressions and things of that nature quickly, life changes for you, because now all you really need to do, and this isn't hard, is get the right samples, you know, let's say the right drum samples. You don't even really need a synthesizer per se, you just need the right bass samples and the right lead samples. Plug them into the MIDI that you just recorded and you've got yourself a song. At the very least, drum samples and Serum, Sylenth, Spire, Massive, Nexus, all of these soft synths can get the job done for you as far as giving you the appropriate sounds that you need for current music. But if you inverse that, if you have all those synths and you're great with Ableton or good with Ableton, but you're not much of a piano player, your time is elongated so much because you can't play an instrument. And it's not about being classically trained, it's just about being able to manipulate and record quickly. I'd rather have someone who sends me a song that's all piano MIDI, because then all I have to do is pull up, let's say that the song is 25 tracks, 25 instances of Serum and replace the piano parts with presets. And I mean, you more or less, you're good to go, you know? As opposed to having 25 instances of Serum and not really knowing how to put chords together, so you're sitting there and tinkering with drawing them in and stuff. It's not that you can't do that, you can, and depending on the style of music that you make, some of it is easier than others and can be advantageous. If you're making groove and house that really never has chords, and you're just looking for a groove and bass line, which arguably can be made with two notes going back and forth, call and response, or you can get real crazy and do three notes. It's not real necessary to, I guess, understand music theory at a deep level. Just, you know, a minor scale bass line, but taste change and having that knowledge under your belt is very helpful to speed up the process. So if you have that from 3 to 13 and you continue to maintain the quality of that from 13 to 23, and here's where it gets tricky, maintaining that means practice, writing, putting stuff out, but then starting to study what to do with that product. So business, marketing, and finance, those 10 years from 13 to 23 get tough because you're not just studying business and marketing and finance for music, you're also making the music. It gets tricky, it gets hard, but by the time you're 23, you're you could be super unstoppable and be a mogul for sure. And by the time you're my age, you should have something real nice. I mean, really be cooking with some heat. So just some thoughts on that. And anything that you've fallen short of, let's say maybe you come from a family that didn't introduce you to music right away, or you weren't required to be disciplined about piano, or required to be disciplined about reading or research, start to fix it. You know, I have an entire music academy for a reasonable monthly fee. It's not like you have to have a ton of money to pay up front like school, like, you know, traditional school. It's a basic monthly fee that can basically take you very far and uplift you very high very quickly. But the one thing that it does require, and this is where a lot of people get upset, mostly with themselves, but have a tendency to take it out on me or other teachers, is the discipline of it. It isn't so much that the monthly fee or the information isn't good. 99% of the time, that's besides the point. The problem is, I have to do this every day. Yeah, you have to do it every day. Just like maintaining your health or hygiene or a business, you have to do it every day. If this is what you want to do, especially because it's the music industry and it's not an essential thing per se like food and water. It's in my opinion one of the toughest businesses to be in. You know, I mean, selling water is way easier because it's essential. You know, coming up with a good solution on how to clean people's gutters or lawn care, that's way easier because it's something that's needed and essential. So I'm just saying that you have to really wake up with an entrepreneurial mindset and a psychology that says every single day we get up and we do this. Every single day. So learning every single day. Practicing what you previously had learned every single day. So think about that today, guys. And most of you obviously are not 3, so it's a little hard for you to go back in time and make good on the plan that I offered, but I just wanted you to understand that you can make up for that time, because I am. And if you make it easy on yourself, and I understand it's not that easy, but make it easy on yourself by learning piano in theory so that you can bust out basically a bass part, a chord part, and a melody line, and counter melodies quickly, which really can only be done by being able to play, like having the dexterity to play, but then also the theory so you know what the heck you're doing and how to achieve what you're striving for. You know, it's kind of like, well, this food needs flavor. If you don't understand how to use salt, if you've never even heard of salt and pepper, it's a little hard to add flavor and season food. So, learn piano, learn theory, learn how to record yourself. Once you learn how to record yourself, get yourself a good library, not necessarily a ton, but a quality library of samples and sounds that you need to make your genre, whatever is standard in your genre. Once you do that, study business, marketing, and finance, and become a working master at it. You don't need to understand everything before you get to work. As you learn things, implement them, incorporate them into your wheelhouse. So, you know, within 10 years of hard work, you're a piano player that understands theory, and as a result can bust out a song fairly quickly on FL or Ableton. You also understand how to market that product to people. Upon marketing that product, people will engage with it, business, and then once business usually happens, money, a transaction, finance. And if you're able to manage all of these things and continue to learn about them, you can set yourself up to retire with money in the bank and shatter the idea of being a poor, starving musician, or someone who's absolutely heartbroken because their dreams weren't achieved. It's just not necessary. The problem is you're depending on a gatekeeper to recognize your talent and, you know, be your caretaker. And it's just not only an old, outdated style, but it's dangerous. You're putting your health and wellness, financially, mentally, and physically, in somebody else's hands, and nobody's going to care about you more than you do. Think about you versus your neighbor across town. You don't know them, you don't care about them as much as you care about yourself. So take responsibility for yourself and do these things. I'll talk to you guys soon.